Hello, my name is Kat Normoyle, and I'm an assistant professor of graphic design at East Carolina University. I'm presenting today here from Greenville, North Carolina, and want to thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video presentation. I became interested in the theme of hybridity as I began preparing for the fall semester and recognized how planning hybrid courses for my classes was really forcing me to reconsider not just the physical boundaries between digital and physical classroom spaces and academic environments, but also the ways in which we teach in them, what I teach, and how I work with students to share and create knowledge. I started thinking about opportunities to expand on materials and processes and resources for learning. I was reconsidering alternative methods for making and assessing outcomes. I started thinking about different ways I could foster interaction among students, encourage collaboration, and exchange ideas and knowledge from a distance, and basically realized that in this process, I was creating potentially new teaching models for higher ed. I was thinking that under these circumstances, whether we're happy about it or not, there was an underlying opportunity here to pay attention to how we redesign our courses and recognize the potential positive or negative outcomes that unfold because of it. We are, in effect, creating alternative structural systems for learning through our investigations and discoveries of designing hybrid courses, an opportunity that, if recognized and learned from, could challenge our current educational systems to be better by accommodating more types of learners in and from a range of types of learning spaces. So what began as designing a hybrid course shifted into something more meaningful. I found myself speculating on the future of design education and wondered, could the outcomes from designing hybrid courses be a catalyst for systemic change in academia? I started to view my fall courses as part of this grand experiment. I was thinking about the hybrid structure and course methods and content as an academic intervention, a research project basically, an investigation into new teaching models. There was an opportunity here to bend institutional structures and academic learning models and document it in the process so that we might learn from it. And maybe the silver lining here, instead of focusing on pure exhaustion and general frustration, was that we could focus on documenting the experience. I could collect data during the process and assess and report on it to a larger audience and my design educator community. And so now I'm in this process of executing my research investigation, which is teaching 2 new hybrid courses at ECU. I have a senior graphic design studio with 2 sections of students, and I'm co-teaching a sophomore studio survey that has 4 sections total. Before classes started, I spent a lot of time thinking about the physical and digital learning spaces and how students might participate either in person in the physical building as well as accommodate those who wanted to work remotely. Students had varying degrees of needs in terms of accessibility and tools and resources, and they also had varying concerns about returning to the classroom as well as working all online. I decided that my main priority this semester was to try and be as equitable as possible by creating a flexible, fluid classroom space. There was definitely foreseeable challenges with this fluid format, including how I was going to focus on students in person and remote learners at the same time. I imagine the remote learners would participate more indirectly by tuning in and asking questions as they had them, but the in-person learners would participate more directly in the classroom. I set up some tools to assist with this cross-digital physical scenario. I had a tablet set up on a tripod with rollers that I could roll around the classroom space with me, and that would be my digital students. Ultimately, ECU moved all classes to online, so I was never able to test this in action, but I may try to do this for the spring semester. Our studio courses typically meet face-to-face twice a week for 2.5 hours. For my hybrid course, I opted to minimize face-to-face meetings to once per week with synchronous material to be completed independently on the students' time prior to face-to-face meetings. Our classes met Monday, Wednesday, so generally speaking, students were expected to watch and read lectures, demos, look at example work, look at inspirational work, read articles. All of that kind of work would be done to prepare for the synchronous class time on Wednesday's class meeting. This is basically a flipped classroom format. Our face-to-face time was reserved mostly for further discussion of concepts and tools. It was for sharing project development and feedback, asking general questions, and general class discussion. I've broken up the class in multiple ways depending on the day's agenda, but so far best success for discussions anyways has been working in smaller breakout groups. So assigning 4 students to join class for 30 minutes at a time, for example. I've done this a few times with a wrap-up discussion at the end, and it seems to have worked well so far. So in addition to the flipped classroom format and considering additional course materials, additional and more diversified materials, I've been considering how to incorporate museum visits and different design agency visits that are now available during COVID world. I'm also looking at alternative making strategies, assessment strategies, and different methods for fostering interaction and exchange and collaboration. I've been talking to students about alternative making strategies as well. So creating alternative implementation strategies for this project in particular. In this example, students are designing a cross-platform campaign across digital and physical media. And because of the context, we've been discussing a lot lately how to engage audiences in this COVID world that we live in. So how do we embark on projects like this in our current circumstances? How do we engage audiences? How do we work with alternative partners and clients? We also talk about the use of different types of materials and processes to create and share work. We're working both online and offline using a mix of media and a mix of analog tools. In both of my classes, we have been using Adobe Spark to share process as well, and that's been very successful. I've also created a lot of different assessment strategies for this semester, like recording process videos to share process of craft rather than trying to assess craft itself. I've also created some new presentation assignment projects like this one here, which I'm particularly excited about. It is asking students to do a vidcast, sort of like a podcast, but with video, using techniques of discussion and conversation and interviews to create a final presentation to discuss the results and outcomes of their design work. I'm particularly excited about this project because not just because it's a different format, but also because it's another way to potentially foster collaboration across students in the class. I've asked the students to team up in pairs or trios to create this vidcast. Lastly, designing hybrid courses this semester has allowed me to co-teach one of my classes with my design colleague. Another interesting point to assess and reflect on after the semester ends in terms of how students engaged with us, their faculty, in an online learning environment versus the one-on-one experience face-to-face. So I'll conclude here this presentation with a call to action to you all. Design educators who are bending over backwards to teach in this new format, this new world. And I'm asking you to pay attention and document, and if possible, assess and reflect when there is time so we can possibly learn from it as a potential new teaching models in higher ed. I plan to do this through quick data collection techniques throughout the semester. So using photo, video observation, and notes to document the course, to document the process and the outcomes of the course and the new assignments, a mid-semester and post-semester student survey to measure perceptions of the students, specifically on some of the points that I'm interested in learning about techniques for collaboration, different making strategies, different assessment strategies, etc. And then if possible, I may ask students to do sort of a post-testimonial or maybe an interview with particular students that are interested in engaging in this project in that way. I suspect, like any investigation, there will be opportunities and barriers that come out of this experience, but I do wonder, could the outcomes from designing hybrid courses be a catalyst for systemic change in academia? And a first step to knowing that is to record, assess, and reflect on the experiences that we're having now in these times to see what we could potentially use to create better academic experiences in the future. Thank you.